The Nile. For millennia, the lifeline of an entire civilization. It gives life, yet it harbors the potential for one of the most explosive conflicts of our time. Two giants of Africa stand irreconcilably opposed. Egypt, the ancient military power that depends on the Nile for 95% of its water. And Ethiopia, the rising proud nation that holds the key to the Nile in its hands. Egypt has threatened war multiple times. Its generals draw up plans for airstrikes. Its politicians speak of an existential threat. On paper, the matter seems clear. Egypt is one of the strongest military powers in the world. But would an attack on Ethiopia really be that simple? Or is Cairo arrogantly underestimating an opponent that has never been subjugated by a foreign power in its entire history? Today, we analyze the brutal military reality. Would Egypt dare, and would they win? The answer is more complicated and dangerous than you think. The heart of the conflict is this gigantic structure, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD for short. Since 2011, Ethiopia has invested $4 billion here to build Africa's largest dam. In September 2025, it was ceremoniously inaugurated. For Ethiopia, the dam is a symbol of national pride. It's meant to lift millions out of poverty and make the country Africa's energy superpower. For Egypt, it's a nightmare. Cairo fears that Ethiopia could literally turn off the tap. Every drought period, every political crisis could become a catastrophe for 111 million Egyptians. Years of negotiations have failed. Egypt speaks of a threat to national security. Ethiopia of its sovereign right to development. Diplomacy has reached its end. Now, only the military speaks, and Egypt's military speaks loudly. According to Global Firepower 2025, Egypt is Africa's strongest military power and ranks 19th globally. An absolute top-tier power. The numbers are crushing. Active soldiers, 440,000 Egyptians versus 162,000 Ethiopians. An advantage of nearly 3 to 1. Fighter jets. Egypt has a massive air force with 238 modern fighter jets. Ethiopia has just 25. Tanks. Over 3,600 Egyptian tanks face only 338 Ethiopian ones, a 10 to 1 advantage. Navy. Egypt possesses a formidable navy with 2 helicopter carriers, frigates, and submarines. Ethiopia has nothing. On paper, Egypt could launch an invasion that would bring Ethiopia to its knees. A quick airstrike on the dam, followed by ground troops. Victory in a few weeks. At least that's the theory in the war games of Cairo's generals. But these war games overlook 3 crucial, provocative factors. Factors that could turn a war into an incalculable disaster for Egypt. First, the soul of an unconquered people. Ethiopia is the only African country that resisted the scramble for Africa and was never colonized. In 1896, at the Battle of Adwa, an Ethiopian army humiliated the heavily armed Italian invaders. This victory is deeply embedded in the nation's DNA. It's a country with a millennia-old military tradition and an indomitable national pride. A people that refuses to submit. Second, the fortress in the highlands. An attack on GERD would be a logistical nightmare. Egyptian jets would have to traverse over 1,000 kilometers of hostile or neutral airspace. The dam itself sits deep in the mountainous Ethiopian highlands. A natural fortress, it's a massive concrete structure that would be extremely difficult to destroy, even with bunker-busting bombs. A failed attack would be a global embarrassment. Third, the technological leap. And here comes the biggest miscalculation. Egypt is looking at yesterday's Ethiopia. But today's Ethiopia is different. Since March 2025, the country has been producing cutting-edge combat drones in its own factory, Skywin Aeronautics, independently. While Egypt relies on expensive imports from the USA and France, Ethiopia is building an asymmetric threat perfectly suited for defending its rugged terrain. Drones that can swarm, surveil, and strike with precision. Technology that negates Egypt's conventional superiority in open battle. This isn't the Ethiopia of the 1980s. This is a nation that's leapfrogging into 21st century warfare. So, back to the original question. Would Egypt dare to wage war, and would they win? A direct attack would be playing with fire. Yes, Egypt has conventional superiority, but victory is far from guaranteed. An airstrike on the dam is extremely risky and could fail. A ground invasion would be a suicide mission in the Ethiopian highlands against a battle-hardened army defending its homeland. Egypt wouldn't be fighting an underdeveloped army, but a nation of 118 million people with an indomitable will for independence and modern drone technology. The war would drag on for years, ruin Egypt's economy, and isolate the country internationally. The more likely option is a proxy war. Egypt could try to arm rebel groups in Ethiopia to destabilize the country from within. But that too is a dangerous game that can easily spiral out of control. The verdict is therefore no. Egypt would most likely not win a conventional war against Ethiopia, at least not in the sense of a quick, decisive victory. They would sink into a bloody quagmire that would weaken them for decades. Egypt fundamentally underestimates Ethiopia. They see the numbers of tanks and aircraft, but they ignore the history, the geography, and the technological will of a nation that has never bowed. And here's the brutal irony. Egypt's greatest weapon, its military, is also its greatest liability. Every dollar spent on war preparations is a dollar not spent on water infrastructure, desalination plants, or agricultural innovation. Egypt is preparing to fight a war it can't win, while ignoring solutions that might actually save its people. Ethiopia knows this. They're betting that Egypt will blink first, and so far, they've been right. The conflict over the Nile remains one of the world's most dangerous time bombs. Egypt's desperation is real, but so is Ethiopia's determination. War seems averted for now, not because Egypt doesn't want it, but because it can't, at least not with any prospect of success. What do you think? Am I overestimating Ethiopia's strength or underestimating Egypt's resolve? Drop your opinion in the comments.